The Austin A-List represents some of Austin's most visionary founders and enterprising companies. These entrepreneurs and teams develop innovative technologies and business models that have the potential to create market shifts in their respective industries.
Good afternoon, virtual audience. My name is Will Coombs with Visa, and I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to join us as we hear from our outstanding panelists on how to innovate, adapt, and keep moving forward despite the challenges that we face today. While it's true that today's challenges are unprecedented, they are certainly not insurmountable. And of course, stay with us to hear about the winners of our A-List Spotlight Awards and Tech and Innovation Awards for companies with 11 to 50 employees. As I put on a jacket, which is honestly the first time I've done so in 6 months, I actually found, I don't know if you can see that, this was a ticket to the after party at a previous A-List award. To say that we're not going to be doing that is an understatement, but it reminded me how much I look forward to these awards, how fun it is to come together and celebrate the best of Austin entrepreneurship, and how lucky we are to have partners like the Austin Chamber that present this on our behalf. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Laura Huffman, President and CEO of the Austin Chamber. Laura, you might be on mute.
Hey, well,
there you go. There you go.
I think that's the 2020 quote, right?
Totally.
High five to you, Will. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I want to thank everybody out there for joining us for the 9th annual A-List Awards. This is brought to you by the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce and, of course, South by Southwest. We're obviously doing this remotely this year, but I think you're going to love what we've got lined up for you. We're having a virtual series, and what we've done is we've reached out to our community, to leaders like you, to not only sponsor the awards program, but also to have good conversations. And we're here to highlight what you're doing. You are the collaborative economy that attracts talent from all over the world that want to be part of something big. And over the next 2 days, we're going to be celebrating with entrepreneurs, founders, and companies that are driving innovation. I had a chance to see some of the content earlier, and it is engaging. And it's because you all have so much to offer this community. And let me say this, we here at the Chamber are here for you. Our mission is to help people live, work, and thrive in Austin. And we do that by creating widespread economic health. That's our mission and it's our focus. And you can count on us to create that environment that allows skilled employees and businesses to grow. We do that through our economic development function. We do that through our policy work. We do that through our education work. And importantly, we do that through work like this, where we're convening leaders to listen and learn from one another. So I'm especially excited about this year to listen and learn from you all and to celebrate the work that you're doing and your leadership in this community and beyond. I want to thank our sponsors. We've got some very generous sponsors who have helped make this year's A-List event possible. So let's get to that. First, our presenting sponsor. Thank you, Visa. Our reception sponsor is Deloitte. Our speaker sponsor is the Toronto Stock Exchange. Our presenting awards sponsor is Google and Google Fiber. And I also want to thank our award sponsors, Independence Title Company and Wells Fargo, and our corporate sponsor, Ascension Seton. You all really are important to this ecosystem that we call the business community in Central Texas. And I want to thank you for your generosity and making these conversations possible. During this most unusual year, our ability to continue learning from one another and continue supporting one another is as important as ever. And now it is really my pleasure to introduce Delilah Panillo, who is the Vice President of Capital Formation with the Toronto Stock Exchange. Delilah, welcome and thank you.
Laura, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Delilah Panillo, and I'm with the Toronto Stock Exchange, and we are a strong supporter of the A-List Awards. We work with founders and innovators in Austin, providing a unique public venture capital option for high growth companies, and are thrilled to be here today. Although, of course, I would much rather be doing this live in Austin with all of you. This brings me to a strong, inspiring local founder and CEO who continues to soar as an entrepreneur and community leader. In addition to building a billion-dollar company, she partnered with UT Austin to create the Kendra Scott Women's Entrepreneurship Leadership Institute in 2019, and was most recently appointed as a professor of practice in the College of Fine Arts. He's also slated to be the newest guest judge on ABC's Shark Tank. Kendra, thank you for supporting A-List Awards this year and supporting our local founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. You're one of the best. Let's welcome Kendra Scott.
Hi, I'm Kendra Scott, and welcome to this year's Austin A-List Awards. Although this year's event looks so different than we hoped it would, I'm honored to be here with you tonight, virtually, to celebrate our amazing hometown and the people who make it great. As Austinites, we have a few things in common. The city of Austin is a city that supports its own. We're a fiercely loyal community. We love to see our neighbors succeed, and we're going to go out of our way to help make someone else's dream a reality. We also have a fighting spirit, an energy that tells us to keep going, even when someone tells us no. We aren't afraid to see the world differently, to challenge the status quo. When we see an opportunity, we take it, no hesitations. And true to our Texas roots, we understand the value of a kind word and a helping hand. That's why I not only chose to raise my family here, but to build my business here. I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as fast as I could. And it didn't take me long to call this place home. And I owe so much to this supportive community for believing in a young, local entrepreneur like me. Austin gave my dream its wings to fly. When I was a new mom, walking door to door with a box of handmade jewelry and a baby on my hip, this city didn't look down on me. It gave me a chance. Once Kendra Scott Jewelry began to grow, I heard so many people, leaders I looked up to in business, say, "You might want to move to New York or Los Angeles to have a successful jewelry brand." But I chose to trust my gut and plant our roots in Austin. I knew there was a magic about this city, that I could build something here that would be unique. 18 years later, I know that that decision was not only the right move for me, but it has set our business apart and made us stronger because of it. My journey to success was not the most traditional. It was not a smooth road. There have been plenty of bumps and unexpected turns along the way. I had a failed business, survived a nationwide recession. Countless people told me no. Countless times I thought how easy it would be just to give up. There are so many people, my friends, family, mentors, who made an impact on me and built me into the woman that I am today. Success is not something you can achieve alone. And in the midst of a pandemic, I am encouraged to see so many local businesses, neighbors and friends in this city who rise to the challenge to support one another, to spread a message of unity and change, and to give back to our community in need. That support, that love for the place we call home and all the people in it, this is what makes me most proud to call myself an Austinite. We are dreamers, doers, game changers. We are loyal, compassionate, and kind. In our world today, these qualities that bond us together are more important than ever. Tonight, we are here to celebrate the people who truly embody what it means to be an Austinite. That alone is something to be so proud of. And I can personally say that every one of you being recognized tonight have made an impact in our community. You have made this city a better place. And for that, we are all so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra, for giving your voice to this year's A-List Awards. You mentioned magic in the community, and that community magic exists because we have leaders like yourself that lead with grace. And as you continue your climb as a CEO to watch, you still remain approachable and authentic with all of your success. I'm sure that your words and actions are inspiring and energizing everybody that's just heard them. Thank you again, and I can't think of a better way to launch A-List 2020. As Kendra continues to innovate with her designs and business, we're going to turn our attention to inspiring leaders who continue to make a mark on our local landscape. We hope this inspires you to continue to show up as an effective entrepreneur during challenging times.
Over the last 6 months, companies have been faced with making many tough decisions. Leaders and teams have had to get creative, dig deep, and use the current climate as an opportunity to lean into their company's entrepreneurial strengths. How do successful entrepreneurs respond during challenging times?
As you heard from our local leaders, innovation is key. Innovation spurs leaders on to see chaos as opportunity and to aggressively, compassionately, and thoughtfully move the ball forward. It's my pleasure to now welcome our incredible lineup of speakers for today's A-List program. If you're looking to hear firsthand how some of our top leaders and CEOs are innovating, you've come to the right place. Leading this discussion is Tamara Fields with Accenture. Welcome, Tamara.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. As everybody indicated, I'm Tamara Fields, and I'm a member of I'm on the board of directors for the Austin Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very excited to be hosting this panel today. In addition to that, I work for Accenture. I'm our Austin office managing director for our Austin office, which means I'm responsible for our 4,000 plus employees here in Austin as part of Accenture, and Accenture is also a member of the Chamber. I'm very excited to be hosting our panelists today, and they're all excited to be sharing with you around this very important topic around how do you innovate during times of change and volatility, and to get their perspectives. And you're going to get that perspective from different industry groups, which I think is exciting. So I just want to welcome I want to welcome Eric, Kiwi, and Julia. And I'm going to ask them to jump in now. And I'm going to ask them to just first give us a little bit about who you are. And I'm going to ask Eric to jump in and start. And then Julia, we're going to go to you. And then Kiwi will go to you. But if you could each just give us a quick summary on who you are, the company that you're representing and leading, so that everybody can have context for why you can speak on this topic today.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Tamara. So Eric Starkloff, I'm the CEO of NI. So we're a technology company that you may not know of, but we actually provide the tools and technology that engineers around the world use to design and build the products that all of you use every day. We have 7,000 employees, about 2,500 are here in Austin. I started at the company as an entry-level engineer 23 years ago, and in February of this year, I took over as CEO. So my timing couldn't have been better. It was basically right as COVID hit. And so it's been an interesting last 6 or 7 months, and I'm sure we'll get into that. So thanks for having me on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Cheek. I am the founder and CEO of Everlywell. I'm really excited to be here today. One of our very first awards at Everlywell, when I moved the company here in 2016 and in the years after, was an A-List award. So I believe deeply in the Austin community and the tech community here and how I was welcomed. My business employs about 250 people between Dallas and Austin, and we have been helping people access lab testing at home for over 5 years, and as such have had an important and exciting role to play over the last 6 months during the coronavirus pandemic and our solution to testing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kiwi Camara, founder and CEO of Disco. We're a legal technology company. We make software that helps law firms, legal departments, and government agencies find evidence in major litigation or government investigations. I've been in Austin for 2 years now and in Texas for 12 years, and just have been delighted by the city and the community and how welcoming it is, and happy to play a role here. And congratulations to all the winners today.
Oh, yes. I think we absolutely have to say congratulations to all the winners today. I think it's a really big deal. And y'all should be very proud and very excited to be part of the nomination process, but really I'm very excited for the winners. Kiwi, I have to tease you a little bit because, disco, I think dancing and legal, and I'm not sure how those go together. So that's going to be a little fun for us today. But I think we really talk about this concept of innovating during challenging times, right? I think many of us will say that this year of 2020, we've seen all sorts of types of challenges, but definitely the challenge in our business and our community. And it's really important that we continue to provide jobs, right? If I think about the chamber and I think about my role on the chamber, like we take our responsibility to providing economic development and growth and prosperity for the city of Austin very seriously. And so, I can imagine that for your companies, COVID was an impact that was unexpected. And I think many of us thought hopefully it was going to be short term. That short term has turned into a longer impact than any of us could have initially realized, right? And so when we talk about challenging times, I think we're talking about this economic volatility that's impacting all of us and putting our employers at risk. And so how do you keep your employees excited and innovating and thinking outside the box when they're challenged and impacted by everything that's happening around them? How do they not get distracted? How do you set the tone for keeping them innovative thinking and just really thinking outside the box, just given the reality of what everybody's facing? And I think this is such an important question. I'm going to ask all of you to speak to it. And since we started with Eric last time, Julia, why don't we have you kick off first, and then Eric, and then Kiwi, because I'm really excited to hear from you, especially just giving your different industry lens on how you're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important question. And I found innovation overall has been something people have really been struggling with in a virtual environment, let alone during a very difficult social and pandemic environment, and trying to keep that innovation and urgency and pace and fun in the workplace. And for us especially, we had to carry two things at once. One was innovating, getting to market incredibly rapidly to help Americans and get them COVID testing. On the other hand, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was very open with my team that we were cutting costs and I was putting a hiring freeze in place. And so one of our core values is transparency. We chose to continue to deliver that even in this moment, which can be a challenging thing for people to weigh on them. And so we had to try to promote both sides, even in an environment where I'm sure our team was nervous and scared, and to tell them that we were banding together to be able to do something bigger than ourselves and deliver on this mission. And it ultimately, I think, was incredibly inspiring for me as a leader to watch our team deliver in that way. And, for all of us as founders and CEOs or as CEOs, we're used to ambiguity, we're used to hard decision making, and we're used to chaos. But at that point, I think in the pandemic, everyone had that. And everyone had that visibility. And so that can be something really hard to try to channel for good. And I was really proud of how our team responded in that moment. And frankly, I think it has very little to do with me and much more to do with us having a mission to orient around that everyone could put their energy to.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for us, first of all, it starts with, as you mentioned, Tamara, we have to support people because a lot of personal challenges along with the professional ones, certainly. So, that's like in the hierarchy of needs, you just got to make sure that people are supported in a way that they can do their work and that they're safe and so forth. And then, to me, that there's these sort of dual challenges of, on one hand, the environment in some ways sort of spurs innovation. Like I'm a big believer that it's like adversity drives creativity. And boy, have we had to be creative in our company, in our clients and customers. I mean, we've had to do things that we never imagined that we would do before. In our case, for example, we had We serve all kinds of critical applications. We have customers in designing products and factories. Are even more important now. We had ventilator companies coming to us, Ventec and GM, on a Friday, needing to ramp up production on a Monday. And we had to put a team together over the weekend and figure out, how do we do something that normally takes 3 months in like literally 3 days. So that there's a lot of creativity and innovation that happens on that front. And that's been a real learning. That is one of the silver linings, because a lot of those learnings will carry forward. I think the challenge that I think we've had is just, in some ways, innovation, we've relied probably too much on like serendipity, like just the serendipitous connections among people that happen in certain environments. And that's been hard to reproduce, right? But at least we've been thinking about, okay, how do we use this as an opportunity and be more deliberate? How can we make those things that were serendipitous more deliberate in the way that we connect with each other going forward? Because it's been kind of required in this time frame.
No, I appreciate that. And, Kiwi, we're going to jump you there because there's a lot to unpack in both what Julia and Eric just share. Kiwi, give us your perspective on how you're dealing with innovating right now in this challenging time.
It's been a challenge for us. I think, like Julia, when this first started, we were not sure what the scope of the impact would be for our business. I think for Everlywell, it's been actually a big accelerator to the business. For many people, it's been a complete collapse of their business, and Disco is somewhere in the middle. And we had to figure out how to adjust to that, especially because we had built a culture that was very, 100% growth every year, problems. And so that was kind of a hard pivot for us at the beginning of the pandemic. And something, I would echo again what Julia said, it's really a testament to the team that they were able to drive that response through the organization very quickly and get us in a good position going into the pandemic. That, I think, was the beginning. As we got going, I think it's been really interesting. This echoes something Eric said, that really customers have driven a lot of the innovation at Disco as we've had to keep up with them and their needs in these changed circumstances. For example, one of the services we offer is a kind of AI-powered review of documents. So in big litigation or transactions, a company or a law firm might hire us to go find the documents that actually matter to a regulator or to a court. And the lawyers we use to do that suddenly had to transition from working in big offices to working scattered across the country and the world remote. And how did our system and our services practices adapt to that? And quite frankly, it was a difficult transition, but we got through it. And now we've got a very compelling remote review service that we expect to keep forever. And so it's a good example, I think, of finding the silver lining and the innovation that can be driven during the pandemic.
Yeah, there's so much in that. And I think I want to unpack a little bit of this, but differently for each of you. And so, Julia, I'm going to come back to you around something that you said, and it's a word that you utilized around transparency. The reality was there was an economic volatility that was introduced with COVID that had a real impact in terms of your sales and revenue, right? And so you knew that meant that you had to be lean in terms of your costs. But what I liked was that you didn't hide it, you didn't misrepresent it. You used the word transparency. And I'm going to tie that back to company culture. How do you maintain company culture, right, when there's all this change? And there is some negativity that sometimes comes with that, the reality of the business. And it seems to me you took it just right out. Like, I'm going to take this bull by the horn and put it out there. So can you talk a little about your company culture and how culture has played in how you've dealt through this period of transition and change?
Gosh, I mean, it is maybe the most important leadership thing I haven't figured out that I'm focused on right now. And the reason I say that is we've hired 2/3 of our employees since we went to work from home. I've hired 4 of my direct reporting executive team members without having met them in person, including a head of people and talent, who has subsequently hired 150 people since he joined 3 months ago. And so it is always hard to get through hyperscale. It is always hard with new people. It is so hard to make that work. And it is so important both for our customers and for our employees that people feel empowered, engaged, educated on our product and part of the mission. And that has really been tough with this virtual environment. And so I will say I think it's something that I'm really focusing on because I don't think we know how to do it right yet. And I think our team has really made so many great innovations and improvements, but it was a little bit in those first 90 days, we thought we would just be back in the office, and we had a lot of crutches with the office. Right. A lot of communication that was, Eric mentioned that was not deliberate yet happening. And so we're really looking to other companies that have been modeling this remote workforce and scaling for a long time and how we can do that. And of course, eventually some kind of a hybrid model. But I think for us, it is this moment of hyperscale, which we've actually then had to say that is not actually fun. That is exciting, and it is an opportunity. But a startup and hyperscale is not exactly fun. And so how do we make sure people understand how to come into a culture like that, and then how to change it and make it better, and play a role in it? So that's something we're certainly still in the thick of, but it's been I wouldn't have asked for a different process. We want to lean into it, but it's certainly been hard.
Yeah, Joey, it's interesting. I come from a company, I work for Accenture, so we're pretty large, right? I mean, we're 500,000 employees globally and 50,000 plus in the US. And, I think for us, we were used to working virtually. I think we had the opposite issue of we over-indexed on the virtual so much that people were getting, because everybody was like, oh, well, what else are we going to do? And so we had to remember our culture of being human. We have this thing called being truly being human. And we had to over-index and remember our culture around our core values of, okay, everyone, we need to remember kind of this work life, like there's no lunch anymore, there's no breaks anymore, we can't do meetings till 9 o'clock anymore, right? and back that up, right, to remember and re-anchor to our culture from that point of view. But you said it again, Julia, and now I'm going to go to Eric. I mean, I think something that you said, Eric, that immediately resonated in my mind is the words people connect. And you were talking about, some of these things that you might have automatically assumed were intrinsic in terms of people connecting. And this just takes me to my next question around, when I think about how the pandemic has permanently or even temporarily changed certain things about how we do things, the way we do things. Talk about for your company, how it's changed in terms of how you were doing things and what you needed to. I think one of you used the word intentional, which I think is really important around how do you intentionally connect humans together to really drive this conversation and work and connectivity of people.
Yeah, and actually, I'd like to answer that question, but build on some of the comments that Julia made on culture, because, and Tamara, you talked about core values and culture, and I really try to draw a distinction between those because people talk about preserving culture, and I have a different point of view. I'm like, no, culture is always changing. When Julia hires 2/3 of her employees, it's bound to change the culture. Right. And so I think the way to look at this challenge is, what are the core values we want to preserve? And we in this case, been really deliberate about that from day one. I communicated them. Hey, these are the core values. These are the way we're going to make decisions. We're going to hold them up against these lenses because we're going to have to make some tough decisions as we go through a crisis like this. But let's use it as an opportunity to evolve culture, because culture, in my mind, includes the good things and the bad things. And so, hey, let's not go back to just the culture we had. Let's look at it more critically and say, how do we evolve it? So to use the exact question you asked, even things like if you think about how you're trying to create dynamics among a team or among a meeting dynamics, and I'm always trying to find a way to, how do I make sure that I'm getting a balance of perspectives? How do we not get confirmation bias and bring disconfirming information? How do I make sure the introverts are participating in things like that? In some ways, the technology frameworks that we have now, if you're not intentional on them, they can exacerbate some of those issues, but they can also help you solve some of those issues. If you think about it intentionally, you go, okay, how do I use this to bring in more voices? How do we do breakouts or allocate time to people so that I make sure that everyone's getting a chance to be part of a key decision? Those are the things that we're focused on in terms of how we operate. And those are the things that I think will actually be big learnings that we carry forward in whatever the sort of future brings.
No, I appreciate that very much. I mean, Kiwi, when you were talking about something that you mentioned, which was interesting to me, is the AI, so artificial intelligence. Right. And I think, in times of change, it's like, is this the time to invest in new technology? Is this the time to expand technology? About how do we respond during this time? And I just kind of wanted to get your perspective, because obviously what has fueled your company is that tie between, process, people, information, but it's the technology behind that and bringing it together. How have you dealt with the reality of, okay, there's a lot of change. Is this the time to continue to embrace new technology?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would not have predicted it ex ante, but the move to working from home, which for law firms, which I think were historically kind of behind the times, myself included, in being open to work from home, and suddenly they're all working from home. It's created this amazing tailwind of desire for, cloud technology that automates away parts of the practice, and frankly, technology that is modern in the sense it will work on a Mac, no Citrix. Lawyers have this reputation for a reason, right? And so, as they come to embrace the cloud, it's been a big tailwind for us, and that's nice. But kind of the reason I started Disco in the first place is, I loved law school, and when you compare what it is people love about law school to their first, call it 5 to 10 years as a practicing lawyer, that gap is immense. And it's because, you're doing things like document review or drafting the fifth, syndicated financing agreement, whatever it may be, things that don't require real human legal judgment. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about AI, we don't think about AI instead of lawyers. We think about AI as automating away the parts of the practice that don't require human legal judgment and aren't why anybody went to law school. And when you phrase it that way, we find that there really is a lot of demand for that, because it lets lawyers get back to what attracted them to the practice in the first place.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think, my perspective as well is technology is a time to embrace it, but it can't be the only answer. All right. We cannot lose this responsibility that we have to each other as humans, and that organic, right? So it becomes symbiotic, right? There's one fuels the other, and we have to look at it as this symbiotic type relationship of technology fueling the organic human connection that we require, and the two need to work together. It's interesting to me, all of you serve clients. Right. And I'm a little bit interested for all of those who are listening in, how has this impacted your relationships with your clients? I mean, I think something you said, Julia, is not only did I have to deal with just the challenging reality, right? I had to deal with rapid release. I think, Eric, you were talking about, right, I had to deal with rapid supply chain, right? All of this is generated, right, because of a need established by our clients. So our clients are also dealing with volatility. And how has that impacted your relationships with your clients? How have the demands with them changed? And has it even been harder for you to make that connection in terms of creating, because a lot of people say, I buy when I know you, right? Like that trusted relationship. How do you fuel that in the reality of this business? And this is a question for all of you. And so I don't know who wants to jump in first there.
It's Kiwi's turn to go first, right?
It's Kiwi's turn to go
first. This is another thing. It's been a year full of surprises for me, and this is another one where my kind of conventional wisdom is overturned. I mean, we have a fairly traditional kind of field sales organization, right, all throughout the world. And all those people on a dime had to switch to doing inside sales, which historically, we've got a small inside sales group, but it's not the bulk of our focus. And that transition has gone swimmingly. It's kind of amazing, and has really changed some of our beliefs about is the technology good enough now that you can build a lot of the same relationship over the Zoom call that you used to build in somebody's conference room? And I'll tell you one nice thing from my point of view and the point of view of a lot of folks at our Austin HQ is, I used to spend 70% of time on the road because I made it a commit to visit every sales territory once a quarter. And now I can visit every sales territory in a week if I want, right? Because it's just a 1-hour Zoom, and I'm there. And that's been just transformative. I think it's something I'm intending personally to keep well beyond when the world reopens. And it's been good, right? So in some sense, the move to video conferencing has actually helped us build these relationships with our clients.
It's good to hear. Julia?
Yeah, I mean, look, for us in healthcare, we have very long sales lead times with large insurance companies, et cetera, benefits companies. And COVID presented an opportunity for us to demonstrate our platform and accelerate very large client signings, some of the largest companies, healthcare companies in the US, in matters of like 30 days. And so that is how we were able to lean in, was really, we already had the technology platform, we already had the capability, but being able then to say, okay, how can we use this moment to help deliver services and potentially shore up our business differently in the long term? I mean, look, this was not an opportunity we wanted, but when the moment arrived, it's very clear that an at-home lab testing company had two choices, to either lean in or out. And so this was a moment for us that we chose to lean in and chose to be aggressive. But that, of course, requires a lot of different ways of looking at clients, right? So you have a lot, I mean, most healthcare insurance companies still use faxes. They still use, right, to communicate results. So we're like backwards integrating with technologies that have not been used for quite a while, because our product has always been digital consumer facing, and that's still the value proposition of what we offer. So it certainly has been a lesson in how to think about what we're offering and what our tools are. You know, this year, actually, our business will be 50% from enterprise clients and 50% from consumer. And so you can start to see how that will shift over time. But that's really, I think, what's how we've been able to serve what I would call our B2B clients differently, is just being able to get on the board in a way that we wouldn't have been able to before, and then hopefully be able to expand from there.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting. Eric?
Yeah, so actually, Kiwi, similar to you, we have a pretty large field sales organization globally. Thankfully, about 3 years ago, we built a similarly sized inside sales organization. So we had built that, and that turned out to be fortuitous. I mean, it was, we made that pivot quickly. We measure, of course, interactions and opportunities and all that stuff. And so on the plus side, the continuity of being able to visit virtually with clients and everything all around the world with 1,000 salespeople and everything, like, we didn't miss a beat from that point of view. I still think we haven't quite figured out, how do you reproduce, there is something to be said for the conversation that you have over dinner with a key client, or, I've of course stopped traveling as well, but I'm more in the side of, I'm itching to get back into it. I don't think I'll travel as much as I did, but I have virtual calls with our team in China, but there's something to be said for sitting down with them over a meal or being in their country and experiencing culture there's a relationship that's built there, and sometimes knowledge that's gained that we haven't been able to completely reproduce. So that's one that I still have my eye on. How do you create those deeper connections? But certainly our ability, like from a continuity point of view, to move to virtual was, we didn't miss a beat, and that'll be another learning we'll take forward.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I think all of us, and for all of those out there who are listening in, who are concerned about their B2B or B2C, so, business to business, business to customer business, I think it still goes back to, how do you create a strong, authentic, relationship? Because it's a relationship-based environment. That's what really fuels success for all companies. And so I think all of us are challenged with that. And we've all seen interesting ideas come across, people doing cooking classes together, people doing mixology type classes together, people doing painting classes together, anything that just kind of really fuels that human connection. So a lot of interesting ideation out there. I think what I'm hearing from all of you is that, it's you've seen and approached this change from a perspective of opportunity. That's what I'm hearing consistently in your dialogue. And so when I think about that, I still have to believe it must require a lot of leadership from you. How do you bolster your own leadership to keep the clarity in your business that's required? Because the reality is this is a time too when people become distracted. They become distracted outside of work. They become distracted in work, because it's just a lot of activity happening at the same time, and it's happening quickly. A lot of movement happening quickly, people having to change roles and jobs quickly. And so I'm interested to hearing, how do you bolster your own leadership? How do you keep your own focus and clarity for your business? And I like to hear from all three of you on this, right? Because I think leadership in this time is really important. And I don't know who wants to jump in.
I can go. I can go. Sure. I'll offer just two. There's a lot to that, and of course, I'm sure as my peers in the panel would say, like, leadership really matters in a time like this, and we're probably all uber focused on it. But I'll just offer two. One is I've put a lot of focus on my own team, my direct team. We've been practicing a principle that we had sort of just started around the idea of co-elevation. So the idea that everyone's success is the responsibility of the whole team. And that's been really important in this time frame, because just the amount of support personally and professionally that the team we've all collectively needed, and being able to sort of vulnerably share with our colleagues where we're struggling, and sometimes that's personally, has been really important and powerful for us. The other one has been something that Julia mentioned, which is just the degree of transparency to the broader company. I mentioned that we really anchored around our core values, and one of the things that we did was I communicated right when this thing sort of started, hey, based on our core values, there's 4 principles that we're going to make all our tough decisions around. And it's based on, of course, the safety of our employees. It's based on we have a 100-year plan, as a very long-term plan as an organization. It's based on the capacity and innovation capability that we need. And then it's based on something you heard me say over and over, which is, what can we learn from this? How can we use it opportunistically? And we're going to hold up every tough decision against those four principles. So we've tried to be transparent with our employees as we've gone along.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, I will tell you that in our own world, right? And if I think about myself, we've really focused in around this concept of making your core values real. And it goes back to the conversation we had on culture. And I think that's really important. Kiwi, tell me, like, in terms of your own leadership style, what are you doing to bolster yourself right now? Like, are you feeling the fatigue of this change?
Yeah, we looked at it as kind of 3 steps. Our first step, and we wanted to do this very quickly as soon as it became apparent this would be a big problem, was to bring stability to the organization. And I sometimes am accused of going beyond transparency and into pessimism. But that's part of my leadership style. I think when something bad happens, everyone always thinks it's worse until you tell them exactly how it is. Mm-hmm. And so we did a reforecast and laid out plans that were a worst case scenario that were considerably worse, about twice as bad as anything that ever materialized. But what it meant is that as we came into April, May, June, July, all the news was in some sense good news relative to that plan, right? And I think that's helpful to people. Like, let's bottom this out and then start getting a cadence of good news to get everybody's confidence back up. I think after stabilization, we moved on to, all right, business is okay. Now let's get back to growth. And the way we did that was by consciously zooming in on a very small list of metrics across the organization. And Eric, you talked about them. Really, we focused on, outbound activity. Are we talking to our clients? And substantive conversations, right? Are we generating opportunities? Because that, to us, was the key to re-accelerate growth. And so we drove that across the entire organization, got people laser focused, did that for a few months, and now we're entering what I call phase 3, which is, all right, where we've gotten through that. Now let's focus on 2021, and really making 2021 a year more like 2019, right? How do we again raise our goals and think about doubling headcount, doubling growth, doubling everything, and get the company back in that spirit we had before the pandemic. So obviously we've taken a kind of measured approach to this, but one where we're very clear with the company and with my executive team at each stage about what we're doing, why we're doing, how we're going to measure it, and why.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kiwi, it's interesting. You said a couple of things there, and there's two I wanna make sure we reiterate for everybody that's listening in. I too, we start in our organization with this concept of good news. I find it's really important. It anchors everybody at the front of the call, and so I like that you said that. I think good news is really important because it's very easy to always focus on the glass half empty, but you need to celebrate your wins. I think the other one that I thought was an interesting word that you used was simplify, right? So simplification. Sometimes that is so important to clarity in business and really driving toward a very simple set of goals. And sometimes I think individuals really and employees really require that because they're getting over and inundated with so many other things. And just like, simply, this is all we're doing, right? It just kind of stresses the moment, de-stresses the goal, de-stresses the action. So I just wanted to give kudos to that. I think that's very important. All right, Julia, we're ready for you. You've had a few minutes now to cultivate what you're going to say, because
I know. Well, I'm learning a lot.
Are you feeling it now?
Which is fantastic. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea and a good tip. So, our initial approach was probably fairly similar to Kiwi in that we put together a board plan that I presented in very early March to our board, which had impact 1, impact 2, impact 3. And my goal from the first moment was to preserve as many jobs as possible, including cutting executive salaries, including everything possible so that we did not have to do layoffs. One of the challenges that I did not predict is I knew we could control our output. But then when things took a dramatic reversal for us, which was pre-COVID testing, but home testing massively took off even in March, it was quite a bit of whiplash from a leadership standpoint. And so we, I think, had to make those plans and put those pieces in place because we had to respond to what the business was experiencing in the first part of shelter in place. However, then we had to quickly pivot and expand and grow and find recruiters and find a head of HR. I mean, all these things that just are essential when you're trying to be in this moment of scale. And so in doing so, we really had to rally the team. And I mean, this Everlywell team, I'm telling you, they worked 24/7, 7 days a week from March until August. And it was incredibly inspiring and something that I couldn't even ask of myself, let alone of my team. And yet they were committed to doing this. But what that also meant is that you then have this push and pull of burnout. And how are we going to resource fast enough and good organized enough to be able to deliver on this? And so in a work from home environment, that burnout just feels pervasive. So we've really had to work with our team on how are we going to make sure people are staying healthy? How are we going to resource the teams properly so that people aren't having to work this hard? And then, we ended up doing a company-wide bonus at the end of Q2, just based on effort alone. And look, I'm very fortunate that we were in the position to be able to recommend that to the board, but it is also incredibly unusual for a board to grant a startup 100% of employees a bonus just based on commitment. And so we were really proud to be able to do that. And that was one little token that we could share with them. And then I think finally, and then I'll wrap my comments, but it has been really rewarding for me to bring on executives that can help me scale. So I just hired a president, given I was like, I'm doing like maybe 5 jobs. Maybe if I did 2, that might be enough. And in bringing on that president, he sat me down and he said, his name's Andy Page. He said, Julia, do you think people realize that this is a once in a lifetime moment and opportunity for them? And I said, no, probably not. I don't know if I realize it, right? We're just trying to get through it. And so he has really helped as an outsider perspective. I think always having those people who can help share that view with the team of how special a culture is, I think can really help in these moments, just to bring in that perspective from anyone that you can. So that's a little bit of what we've done. It's been a little more leadership by intuition, perhaps, than an example I would love to replicate like Kiwi's, but it's worked for us so far.
No, I love that. You know what, Julia, what you're really talking about is a profit with purpose, right? So it's putting your passion and all of that together in one. And it's reminding people that, we have an internal slogan that we utilize. We do work that matters, because we think that people anchor around work that matters more than anything else. And it's surprising a lot of times when you do surveys for people, it's not that people don't want promotions and financial benefits. Of course, everybody wants that. But what has usually been the greatest motivator for people is that they're either working in their passion or they're working for something they greatly believe in. And so I think it's just very interesting. At the end of the day, you're providing kits from home that were exceptionally important in this time to people's well-being, to their health. In the same way, Kiwi, legality is the same, right? You're helping in manufacturing. All of us are dependent in these industry and worlds. And so helping people understand that they do work that matters is critical. But at the same time, and when I can't believe how fast this panel has gone, everyone, but we're about to be at the final set of our minutes here. I wanted to end, and I think you were going there, Julia, a little bit, and Eric, I'll ask you to respond, but it's important that we don't forget that we still must operate with empathy and authenticity. And the reality is people are feeling fatigue. They're feeling technology fatigue. They're feeling Zoom, webinar, Teams, whatever your apparatus is, fatigue. They're feeling the long hours. They're not having the counterbalance of the normality of their life that they had with their gyms or exercise or human connection. For extroverts, this is a really hard time, right? For introverts, they could go even more in, right? And so the reality is that this is real impact on all of us as people, as humans. And so, that's why just even as part of something we've launched in my company around our culture initiative, we do First Fridays, right? This whole thing around learning and growth and being human. And one of the sessions we had last Friday was, the scientific approach to happiness. And that just seems weird, but it was like the one that people oversubscribed to. Like we had the most attendees on that. And that's because people are genuinely feeling impacted right now by this constant change and unrest in their environments. And so, as we close out, if y'all could talk about what you're going to do for yourself and what you're going to do for those that you work with around this concept of empathy and authenticity. If you don't mind, all three of you sharing that, and Eric, why don't we kick off with you? This is how we're going to close out our panel today.
Great. I'll be brief, kind of lightning round. So for myself, actually, meditation has been really important for me in this time frame. I was doing it, but not like I've been able to really commit to daily sort of meditation, and that's kept me grounded and centered and everything, and that's been really important. And then the other one is sort of for me and others, which is I always would interact with lots of employees. I would go down into our cafeteria every couple of days and just sit with groups of employees and listen to them and everything. I've missed that more than anything. So I've been reproducing that. And again, silver lining with our global employees more so than ever before. And just have I have just lunches with employees and just have open conversation about what's going on in their lives and their worlds and the questions they have, and keep it kind of lighthearted. And that's been good for our employees, but it's been great for me. I mean, it's been sort of a saving grace just having that human connection.
Thank you so much for that. Kiwi?
At the company, we've tried to do many of the things Eric talked about. There's this thing called Slack Donut that pairs the people together for conversations. So that's kind of taken off at Disco. We have a group we call the COVID Task Force that my head of the people team and my COO run. It met daily during the height of things, but now they've broadened out into, we just held a town hall for people with young families and how is this affecting them and how can we better accommodate. We've done manager training around helping people deal with some of the issues from the protests in the US this summer. And things like that, right? We've really leaned into, we've expanded Disco University, which is our internal learning and enablement center, things like that help bring people together outside of their day-to-day work. And for myself, I haven't taken a real vacation in quite a long time, so I'm going to Mexico next week.
I went Labor Day week and we had a fabulous time and we were all good. Have fun with that. All right, Julia.
Look, I mean, I am really transparent about this. In both in my personal life and at work, I have no boundaries from work and personal. I have always been this way, even since I was like 4 years old. I was that kid. Very achievement driven, very high work ethic, not bragging on it. It's just sort of how I'm wired. And so I have really struggled with work from home because the office was a boundary setting structure for me. And so even in not wanting others to have that, it's really taken a toll on me. And so I have a 14-month-old son. So that has been actually great for me because I now prioritize breakfast and bedtime, and I'm able to get those two kind of boundaries on the day when I am at home. And I'm still working on it. It's been a really unique time in the business as well. But ideally, I'm looking forward to, I really like to take at least one full weekend day off where I don't touch anything. I think it's really important for recharging. But I welcome self-control tips and tricks on this. I think it's a hard thing for people that are wired like this. And the studies show the same. I mean, our workforce is struggling as well. So we're working on those kind of boundaries and culture boundaries for everyone.
We are. I mean, I like you. I'm very much wired. I'm a workaholic, but I've been very good. In the last 8 weeks, I was like, I'm done, right? I really have. And I'm blocking my schedule. I'm blocking times to breathe. I'm blocking times to go take a walk and mentally reset. I'm arranging walks with, my COVID connection circle, so that I can cut it off at a certain time. And it just requires a lot of intentionality and a lot of discipline. But it's necessary because I don't want to set the atmosphere for my team that what I do is what they need to do. And so I totally relate to that, Julia. But just even for my own mental wealth, right? Like you, Kiwi, I had my first vacation since COVID, the whole crazy started in September. And the refreshness that I felt afterwards, like I just didn't even realize how I was feeling and all of that. So very important for all of us out there to continue to hold ourselves accountable to operating with boundaries and from a point of authenticity and empathy. Eric, thank you so much for talking about that connection and just having real time with people, not just talking about what are you doing for me or have you gotten this deliverable done. I think that is so important. And I just want to say thank you to Eric, Kiwi, and Julia for your inspiration, for your leadership, for your contribution to our Austin workforce. That's really important. And for your leadership in supporting this panel today. I want to say thanks again to the Chamber for allowing us to have this discussion. I just want to remind everyone that this doesn't have to be a time of fear. It can be a time of opportunity, anchoring back to our panelists and those initial commentaries that we had. And congratulations again to all of the winners. I think can all jointly say we're very excited for you. And I'm sure we're all available for you to reach out to if you would like to have further conversation on any of the topics that we covered today. So again, we're going to turn this back over to Will. And I think we all say again, congrats.
It's awesome. Hey, thank you, Tamara, for leading that conversation. I think we'd all agree that getting some advice from those leaders was simply incredible. And I've never been more proud to be part of the Austin business community than I am when I hear the inspirational leadership that we have. So let's get into it and start off with some good news. And I'm going to toss it over to Landry Locke with Independence Title to talk about our Spotlight Awards.
Hello, I'm Landry Locke with Independence Title Company, and I'm honored to be here to announce the A-list winners for our Spotlight Awards. Spotlight winners are individuals who exemplify an entrepreneurial mindset, creativity, and community spirit. Congratulations to all of our Spotlight Award nominees. Our first Spotlight Award winner is Daniel Barnes with Treaty Oak Distilling. Daniel Barnes created Treaty Oak Distilling from a hand-built copper still in a North Austin warehouse to a 28-acre site with full operations and national distribution. He has led a loyal band of artisans and scientists to grow this company in a purposeful way. The company's hospitality pillars are experience, escape, and educate. When the COVID crisis hit, it halted whiskey and gin production to begin manufacturing sanitizer and offering groceries and meals for delivery and to go for the local community. Up next is Roman Gonzalez with Gardinio. Gardinio is a CPG company with a tech backbone, pushing the limits of what's possible to make the gardening experience frustration-free. Roman Gonzalez is a Notley Fellow and has dedicated his personal and professional life to food justice. When he started Gardenia, he aimed to start a culture of inclusivity from the ground up and made sure that his initial team included a mix of people of color, women, and LGBTQIA members. He recently was a winner of the 2020 Div Inc. Champions of Change People's Choice Award. Our final Spotlight Award winner for A-List 2020 is Angel Sang with So Chinese Delivery. Angel Sang, technical co-founder and CTO of So Chinese Delivery, built a platform that allows So full control of the front end, back end, kitchen, and delivery logistics. During the COVID crisis, So launched #SoGiving, an impact-giving campaign that has fed thousands of Austinites in need of support via donations and volunteer work. Congratulations again to all of our Spotlight Award winners. Now let's switch gears and learn the winners of the Tech Innovation Awards for companies with 11 to 50 employees. The first A-List award winner in this category, and in no particular order, is Rocket Dollar. Rocket Dollar allows individuals to invest their retirement savings into real estate, startups, and anything else allowed by the IRS. Its customers can quickly and safely invest in what they want while keeping the tax advantages of a retirement account. Our next A-List winner is Future Proof Brands. Future Proof Brands is a collection of millennial founders and established industry veterans developing innovative beverage brands for the next generation of drinkers. Future Proof was founded on the belief that future generations will continue to demand products that authentically connect with their lifestyle. Their mission is to create cutting-edge beverage brands that speak to innovative individuals. Up next is Compass. Compass is building a modern real estate platform pairing the industry's top talent with technology to make the search and sell experience intelligent and seamless. With 18,000 agents across the US, Compass is the country's largest independent real estate brokerage. And now to our final A-List award winner for this category, SkyGrid. SkyGrid, a Boeing Spark Cognition company, is powering the next generation of aviation. As the only airspace management system built on AI and blockchain, SkyGrid is solving the industry's biggest challenges integrating unmanned aircraft in the global airspace and executing autonomous operations. Congratulations again to all of our nominees and all of our winners. Now we'll go back to Will Combs to close us out.
Hey, thanks a lot for that, Tyler. I'm so impressed by the companies that won, and thanks for sharing that good news with us. I hope that you're going to leave today's event inspired and energized to lead both with your companies and in your community. It's clear that leadership truly matters, and the difference that purpose-driven leadership and empathy makes has never been more clear. And entrepreneurs and innovators are uniquely positioned to show us all how to adapt in the face of today's challenges. I want to offer a huge special thank you again to Kendra Scott, Tamara Fields, Julia Cheek, Kiwi, Camara, and Eric Starkloff. I'd also like to thank our judges. We sincerely appreciate your time and effort. And congratulations again to all of our A-List award winners and nominees. Don't forget to join us tomorrow morning for our next round of phenomenal speakers and A-List award winners. And wear a mask.